Did you know the tree in the garden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil? It wasn't an evil tree. It was a tree God was going to use. But in his divine timetable. Because you see, Adam and Eve were created as young adults, but their spiritual and mental maturity was of an infant. Much of why I say that the Israelites in the book of Exodus remind me of toddlers. Because even though, yes, here I'm depicting them as they're toddlers, they're full adults, but their spirituality is that of a toddler. Just like how Adam and Eve were, except Adam and Eve were infants, but could talk and in bodies, okay? So God had to give free will because he wouldn't be God if he didn't. But that tree would, because I often thought, why did he put the tree there? Because he was going to use it and give them knowledge as they grew and they were ready for it. Just like he'll give you the truth when you're ready for it. The same thing, except after the fall of both Adam and Eve. Man in his hardened heart never once realized, because he had the hardened heart, because the heart became hardened, because now they're in the evil world, they're not in the garden getting to learn this knowledge. Like God would have given them all the knowledge of technology and all of those things as time went on. Like, say, had they not fallen. But you see the consequences of this today. Look at Silicon Valley is an excellent representation of this. With technology, they just go head first into, it doesn't matter, we're not going to think about the consequences, we just have to do it because, China might do it before we do if we don't. That's that mindset that came in because of the fall. It's still adult bodies, but in immaturity. That's why a lot of times people that think that, see, Adam and Eve had no experience in moral discernment, and much of this world thinks it knows what good and evil is. No, you don't. You may know the basics because you're told, do not murder, but nobody really thinks about these things because this world, you're now in the kingdom, after the fall, you're living, God's trying to teach this to all of them amidst the kingdom being under wickedness now because, they chose to exercise free will and they weren't ready to receive all this. So that's why it moves at this small pace, this, gaining in maturity, which is why, oftentimes it's like we're going to build another idol. Because again, it's the maturity level. And you literally see this today. Don't you ever see people I think about this with the left a lot, it's like, how can you not know that that's not good? Well, they wouldn't. Even though it's adults and they think that they know best and they're exercising their free will, not knowing they're just being crazy in many cases because everybody is in this world where, there's really not a lot of thinking. There's just, we're going to do this. It's about me. And yet mankind not realizing it's like you have a hardened heart. Of course you'd have a hardened heart. You're not in the garden anymore. You're in the other world. And God is continually trying to bring everybody, we got to circle around, get back to union so we can be back in the garden again, but we still got to grow into maturity. He was going to use the tree to give them knowledge as they were ready for it. So that's even more reason why this makes more sense to me and why by the end of the Old Testament, there wasn't a change with the heart and mind. So there is no knowing God with a hardened heart. They can do all the rituals perfectly. The 623 that there was in the Old Testament. Like, because on top of the 10 Commandments, God had all these other rituals and how to walk into, if you're a priest, what you have to wear, how you walk into the chapel or the temple, all this stuff, the synagogue, whatever it was called. But when Jesus came, it's like, no, if the Spirit of God isn't here, then the book can be a guide, but the Spirit of God is what you follow. And the book should, help reinforce that then. This was even more important because anybody can toy with the book. That's what the Pharisees had done by the time Jesus came. They added all these other laws, thinking they knew best because they were so knowledgeable. Yeah, but their knowledge didn't come from God. They didn't know God. And they were too, in their hardened heart, such a hardened heart, that there was no way that they were going to even have a bit of opening to understand God. So, this is what God's been dealing with all along. Jeremiah in the Old Testament, he's my favorite prophet. He's poor Jeremiah. You can see that there's a movie on Jeremiah. I think Patrick Dempsey plays him on YouTube. I think it's free. But he did God's will all the way to the end, but he would get angry with God. And some of the things he would say to God, you'd think, oh, God's gonna really let him have it. No. I mean, he told God, you deceived me. This isn't what I wanted my life to be like. And yet God was very patient, and he was somebody that was sanctified before he was born, that God was going to use. But he's considered the weeping prophet. And this is that's Jeremiah. But if I say I'll never mention the Lord or speak in his name, his word burns in my heart like a fire. It's like a fire in my bones. I'm worn out trying to hold it in. I can't do it. Because the Spirit of God was in him. And so, yet, his family tried to plot to kill him. He would continually cry out to God. Really, his only relationship he had was with God. Because all the people hated him because he didn't bring the news they wanted to hear. King Zedekiah put him in jail a couple of times. All because why? King Zedekiah, being in his teenager-like mindset, thinking he knows best, wasn't going to listen to the prophet of God. Okay, and not realize, you know what, you have a heart of stone. You're proving you have a heart of stone. And so Jeremiah would get so upset, and so he was considered the weeping prophet. He had a deep fellowship with God, which allowed frank dialogue, including confessions and doubt. Yet God remained his anchor, watching to fulfill his word through the prophet. This bond models trust amid suffering, culminating promises of restoration in a new covenant. Jeremiah accused God of deceiving him or questioning why the wicked prospered. God responded with reassurance rather than rebuke, challenging him to endure greater trials while affirming his sovereignty. In moments of near despair, such as Jeremiah's wish to resign his calling, the divine word burned within him, irresistibly underscoring God's faithfulness over fleeting anger. Jeremiah expressed fears and distress. God equipped him by touching his mouth and promising, quote, I have put my words in your mouth, while vowing to make him an iron pillar and a bronze wall against opposition. In the end, Jeremiah, everything he told them was right. King Zedekiah ended up losing his eyes, and then heading to Babylon to be killed, and all because he didn't listen to the man. But see, the people didn't like him, and yeah, he's a favorite prophet of many, but a relatable one. But one where God used to the point of filling him with God's fire.